and right-size your life in a smarter, safer place. Start with people who truly care. Steiner Homes of Northwest Indiana. Love where you live. Learn more at steinerhomesltd.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
My next guest is the only person I allow fill in for me when I'm on vacation. You see, Jim made his money the way he built his knowledge. He earned it. Nobody gave it to him. He understood that this is the greatest country in the world because it has the property rights of the individual. It's not just a meritocracy. You're supposed to have laws that protect your property. However, we've lived a long life, or now it turns out we are enslaved to the useless, the degenerate, the drug addict, the all-around scumbag known as a Democrat. I don't like it. I don't think he does. He's a lot more polite than I am. Jimmy Vols, also known as Jimmy Iuorio. What's up, handsome?
Nothing. It's so good to talk to you again. It's been a couple of weeks. I'm glad. The politeness part of it. We'll work on that. You go. What's the question?
Well, no, here's really, you are far better at it, at being tolerant and being polite and explaining it than I am. And the reason is, to me, it is such a bastardization of what capitalism is. And, we call it capitalism. It's property rights, you moron. I'm not enslaved to some scumbag who I loathe, who I wouldn't let in my house or park my car. Now I got to pay this idiot's insurance and for his house and for his food. How in the frack did that happen? I really believe, and I've gone through the policies that are called entitlements. I believe not one is constitutional, legitimate, or a reason to take 50% of my income or your income or honey bunnies or anybody's. Yet that's just the sales pitch of it. The reality is they stole the money from debt. They don't even redistribute money, taxes. It means nothing. Nobody has to pay taxes again. They're redistributing debt, these thieving bastards.
Right, and it's based on such just petty jealousy. The whole what are the letters for Democratic Socialists, BS, whatever. Those morons who think that that's the path. Which, by the way, I'm gonna say something to bring it back to like us looking at it logically and pragmatically. Okay, there are 60% of these people in this country who totally think they got screwed, and all the asset holders made all the money from policies actually starting in 2008, but then accelerated heavily in 2020. Which, by the way, they have a beef and they have a point. Sadly, those policies were all brought about by their side of the political aisle that absolutely gutted the middle class and gave the asset holders all this money. But to your point, they already take 50% of our money. I don't even consider myself necessarily Republican. I think we're all libertarians at heart who are trying to just fight for individual liberties and a meritocratic system and not have to give all our money to people who are not working for it. A great society is judged by how they take care of the people who can't take care of themselves, not the people who choose not to take care of themselves and just want to live on our money. That's absurd. But I do think we have a serious thing to worry about with all these people voting for these idiots like Mamdani and the lady from Seattle. This is a scary thing.
First of all, this is the part where I say how polite you are, because listen to me. The last thing I'm going to ever ask a liar is what was the outcome of an election. Get the frack out of here. You just stole my money. You don't think you're going to... Where am I going to believe you? When you tell me how many morons there are that live next door to me? Get the hell out of here. So I believe every Democrat area is completely illegitimate. And the proof, my evidence, is the destruction of the quality of life, the destruction of asset value, the destruction and the cost of taxes and equity in my home and equity in my paycheck, and how you've used this Cloward pivot to drag the workers right next to the welfare recipients where it's legal. So you have to have that entire perspective. And the greatest way to do it is the Trump era. In a year and a half, the private money, the private business, 11 states, 74% of the GDP, 11 states represent it. Not one led by a Democrat. Every one of those states are the areas that the $19 trillion is coming back to reinvest in, along with California losing the movie business and New York losing everything next to Chicago. So the proof is in the pudding, which is why AOC goes back to the South and pretends she's onto something other than everybody waiting for her middle button to pop and the bosom to flop out. That's it. That's all anybody was waiting for.
Okay, by the way, you mentioning foreign direct investment, I think it's very undercovered. I think that it's a huge thing that companies are, and I think a large part of it is tariff jumping. Again, people like us, like who are descendants of Adam Smith and Keynes and F.A. Hayek, yes, we're against tariffs in principle, but when other countries are using tariffs against us, using them as a cudgel to get them to the negotiating table seems perfectly legit. And now that we're seeing it a year and a half later, and these companies are building plants in the United States to jump the tariffs, guess what? That's awesome. I think it's a really good thing. There's a lot of great things happening. By the way, I'm going to say I still worry about these idiots who feel that they have nothing and all they have is $50,000 in student loan debt from a interpretive dance degree that the government encouraged them to get. I worry about their votes, but I think that things are going good.
I honestly, Jim, when you see, the difference is the perspective that really opened me up a little bit to thinking, boy, oh boy, there's so much I assumed that I didn't understand or didn't appreciate. When you go through an experience of voting in a well-run area versus what you and I were used to,
oh, geez, yeah.
You can never go backwards, brother. And I mean it. I believe that anything that comes out of these states, you look at these states. J.B. Pritzker says to these people who are too stupid to realize right from wrong or how he lies and how he doesn't count liabilities and double counts assets. When he says, I balance the budget. A bald-faced lie. I mean, it's a joke. It's truly a joke. Yeah. The state's in a death spiral of a doom loop of bankruptcy fraud. Only businesses that open are states, but they do that. So now that guy, you think that the people he hires, all those hundreds of millions he invests in campaigns of these virtual strangers, you think they're going to tell the truth when it comes out? No. Come on, I'm from the neighborhood, and so are you. What happens when that door closes and you got
no question.
You got the book open up?
You mentioned cloud-driven strategy. Is that I've written about this extensively, and I don't think it's unreasonable to make the assumption that both J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson are intentionally trying to destroy the economy because there's a real reason why they're doing it, because I believe they think that the feds come in and bail us out, which, by the way, the feds have bailed out people in the past. But I think they have to show that the burning embers of our economy. And when you look at, like, the Bears are just emblematic. The Bears are not the most important. I think they're important, but they're not the most important business leaving. But it's going to be the thing that underscores how poorly we treat capital, how poorly we treat entrepreneurs and business people in this state. And I think they're doing it on purpose because again, who would lend money to the state of Illinois if there wasn't an implicit federal backstop? I mean, you'd have to get 30% for the Illinois bonds, wouldn't you?
Of course. Well, here's the other thing. You can make up, the bastardization and the in and out revolving door of this is capitalism, this isn't capitalism, this is capitalism, this is corporatism. It's infuriating because so few people have an attention span. But they will know about who's going to sign for the quarterback or the wide receiver. So, you've got the first time they intersect to an example of you cannot be in private business and be in an area that is run on government corruption. Can't do it. And, if you're going to try and get these kids and you're going to sign them to $1 million contract, well, that $1 million means even less when you live in a corrupt area, whether they can do the math at the cost of gas per gallon extra or water or property taxes. So you chase out the very player and the consumer you bankrupt can't afford the ticket. And if this company is run by anybody, whoever took a business class, they're morons to stay in Illinois. Morons. You have to hate your money to stay here. You just have to. Now you can argue, why do I do it? Love and affection and all the rest of it. But on a strictly dollar for dollar instance, you're going to make the decision that the shipping yard that just left California, that already makes $3.2 billion a year, that they were going to be a participant of California income, they just said, even though we got the building permits, I got the LOI on the land, we're leaving, we're going to Texas. Or Sony closing the warehouses they just bought in Minnesota, in California, in Illinois, anywhere there's a Democrat area, they close it. So at a certain point, all we got to do is say, well, look it, you want to live in a ghetto? Then vote Democrat. It's really that simple. Do you want to live in a ghetto? Congratulations, you're a Democrat. Where isn't there a ghetto?
Funny? Yeah, exactly. Where they're not there, like they're like locusts. But what's funny is that here's what they're playing upon. Like, look at someone like me who I've built several businesses in Illinois that are thriving and doing well because they're good business. I employ my nieces, I employ family, so you get is so entrenched that it's very, very difficult to pick up and leave, and they know that, and that's why they keep tightening the screws to people because they're playing on that. Everybody says if it was just dollars and cents, I'd give up and I'd be a next door neighbor to you in Naples. It's very difficult for me to do that right now because of the roots that I've put down.
Well,
and they're exploiting that, and it's irritating. Yeah.
We are a hub. You know, you drive through Elk Grove Village, where the place is, where the studio is.
Yeah.
And you look at these businesses, machine shop, nuts and bolts, whatever, these little businesses, the body shops, no matter what it is. These are blood, sweat, generations, success, but it all fed off private money. So these businesses all fed off private money, and some have made the change, and some are going to be making the public sector money that's put through as policies or grants or expansions or infrastructures. But what they don't tell you is that's an illusion. That now has become a tainted well, and their money is part of tax policy money. It's never really revenue. We may pretend it is. We may wish it is, but ultimately that's the Soviet Union, Cuba math, where the government spends, they create a policy, they make it look like a private business, but it never was. Ultimately, you can only have so many of those going on, and when you have no private, it collapses quick. And I'm telling you, that's why these New York communists, these Chicago communists, why else do you think they're running commercials in the South? When I drive and I stop in Tennessee, oh, Illinois, the center of everything. When I get to Florida, Illinois, center of anything. Here you are broke. Why are you running commercials in different states? You're running commercials because you want to fraud people to believing that's an economy of private sector when it isn't. Sooner or later, that chicken's going to come home squawking.
I got a quick story about that, too. You know, we bought the restaurant bar 15 years ago. And Palatine, you know, the Northwest suburbs were a big mob area back in the 60s,
Allegedly.
70s, and into the 80s. Allegedly. I don't even know the guy. Whatever. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, I called the chief of police 15 years ago and I say, hey, are Moose and Rocco going to come knocking on the door of the restaurant saying, hey, this is a tough neighborhood, you got to pay us for protection? And he goes, no, we rooted that out, 10 years back. And at the time, I was like, oh, good, I don't have to pay Moose and Rocco. About 3 or 4 years later, I realized dealing with Moose and Rocco would be a lot easier than dealing with the government who stepped in to take that place of who dominates small business. And because the mob wanted you to thrive, because if you thrived, they would make money. The government doesn't seem to care. I don't know if it's a lack of intellect or just a lack of, I don't know what it is. Well, but well, anyway.
It's funny when you look at what J.B. Pritzker has done. 57 to 77 new taxes on taxes, right? $77 billion all down the hole because he's taking the money from the people who can afford it the least or the people who are deriving their revenue from subsidies and grants or municipal workers, right? So he can't figure out why it's not churning a profit, but it's not churning a profit. And the guarantee of continued taxation is going to different places where people forgot it exists. So I have a friend of mine who we became friends. He came to the golf outing. His name is Anthony, and he's got a business, bricklayer, and he comes up with an idea. Image pots, and it's this cool little idea, very well-made advertising. They're planters and pots. You can put flowers in, whatever you want, big, little, and the rest. Well, part of his business is he rents them. You don't have to buy the pot. If you're having like a special event, you can rent the pot. So I'm going to rent the pot, say $150 for the day. You drop off a pot, 2 pots, whatever it is. Well, now there's a new tax in Illinois on anything you rent. So think about what that does to Hertz, to Avis, to temporary fence guys, to people who rent construction equipment, whatever it is. Now, every time somebody rents something, mainly because, A, they don't want to buy it because they don't need it or it's temporary or whatever the case is, another 10%. So in every way you turn, here you got an Illinois guy, busted his ass his whole life, bricklayer, companies and the rest. I'm going to do another business because I need to supplement my income, and here's another obstacle. And when you look at the multi-layers of taxes on things, and we fantasize about a time where no taxation without representation, no double taxation, you are so unmoored from what this country was in these Democrat areas where the people think it's legitimate now to tax you on taxes, tax on tax. It's insane.
Yeah. And when I will leave, and because I'm 61 now, But when I get to be 75 and we're starting looking at, transferring the estate upon our death and stuff, I'm not giving the state of Illinois this massive cut that they want.
Well, you've already given them 50% of everything, if not more.
Yeah. So that will be a time where I have no choice but to leave the state and domicile somewhere else, and I will. But that's a few years away. I hope. I'm in pretty good health now. But what they don't understand. Well, I'll change that. They do understand.
Yes, they do.
Care that they're chasing all the money away, because I do think they're in a burn it all down mentality, and we're going to suffer for it. And then they're going to hope and go hat in hand to the government and say, "Listen, we need a bailout," which the government will probably give them, depending who's in office.
Well, it's also the other thing too, right? They understand. I'll never forget this when it first started to happen, and I said, right away I would be like, "Well, I'm John Galt. Who's John? I'm John Galt. I'll burn the fracking thing down." That's how I think about it. And I was talking to a guy who was very smart. I was with Proft, and we were at some event where he knew the guy. It was some clubhouse where you could smoke cigars. And the guy said, "Do you know what politicians and the people who advise politicians know?" And I said, "What?" "Maybe 5% of people are like you. Maybe 5% will do something. Most people won't, because it's hard, right? What are you going to do? You're going to be 40, you're going to be 50, you're going to be 60, and you're going to say, I'm going to burn my entire sphere of influence, people I've come to know my whole life, restaurants I built, relationships I've crafted, to do what? You're going to go start all over in a new business?" Very few people will do that. Mm-hmm. And you know what that is? That's the definition of tyranny. Because what they know is it shouldn't happen. It's not in the bounds of a constitutional republic or property right. And we're going to do it anyway, because very few of you can do something or will. Who's going to want to leave their whatever the case is. And, out of principle, I said, I'll never forget having this conversation with my family. I said, "Listen to me. I will not be able to live a long life as I should if I got to live every day knowing I'm a pigeon and I'm an extorted victim. I'm a terrible victim. I'd rather die broke than die with having financed my survival through the abuse of the principles of America." I really feel
Amen. Amen times 10 to that. There's no question about it. And again, I'm still here, and there's other extenuating circumstances, but I am plotting my exit strategy as well, and I hope that's been clear in this call too. Because again, I think they're doing it on purpose. I think the whole thing is there's no word I can think of that's suitable for radio. One could have kicked off the air.
Well, it's also the problem is they don't understand what it goes in to build a restaurant. The relationships, you have.
Suggesting that J.B. Pritzker, who's never had a real job where he's had to make a profit his entire life, doesn't understand business? How dare you, Shaun?
Well, and the other thing, you take away the intimacy of what it means to be a work partner, a relationship between employee and owner. In Illinois, I was in awe. I still can't believe it, Jim. How calm people take this pig or any politician telling you what you have to pay your worker. Who the frack's business? Whose business is all this? Why is all this business out in the air? Yet how many people know these suck-ons that make $500,000 a year in the dark shadows, who got their job because they were one of Daley's asshats and now they run a village somewhere as a manager, or any of these other scams, the ghost jobs that exist. And all of a sudden, Jim Iuorio in his restaurant has to pay his employees XYZ, and this is what you got to do. It's backdoor unionization. But moreover, it's backdoor nationalization of every business, isn't it?
Oh, no doubt. And by the way, our staff is so keen and understands it so well. They are against all these things that the government is trying to do to us, to supposedly, I'm doing air quotes, make our employees' lives better. Our employees are our team members, and they love working with us, and we love them. And they argue against it all the time. They vote the same way we do. But as far as the minimum wage thing goes, but at restaurants, at local restaurants like ours, you've been to my spot, is that we employ high school kids as part of like a community outreach program. One, we want their families to come there and eat. Don't get me wrong. I always like making money. But we also like them to learn job skills. I had a guy, a buddy of mine, Rick, tell me tonight at the bar. His daughter, who's going to become a doctor in a year, he said the most important job she ever had was being a host of my restaurant in Branson, Palestine, because you're forced to solve problems, take care of things. If they make minimum wage $15, I can't hire his daughter when she's a junior in high school, because they don't give me $15 worth of utility. They're there. I love them. I want them to be with us, but I can't do it at $15.
One of the greatest things we lived through is my grandfather with an auto parts store. I was 9 years old. All I wanted was my shirt that said Shaun, a little name tag. I said, you don't have to pay me anything. Just Let me do this. All right, if you could kick out 10 armatures, you sand them down, we put them together in the starter, I'll get you the shirt. That's all I wanted was the shirt. But, I mean, I know it's an exaggeration because I'm a grandson and the rest. But when you would go in a business in my neighborhood, you know who you'd see? Your neighbor kid working for somebody else who he wasn't related to. You would see kids that were working 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. When do you see kids working for anything other than a government?
No, they robbed that. They robbed that from these kids. It was a perfect thing. And they act like, child labor laws, you should be against those. No, within reason, it's great to have kids working. I was never more proud than my paper route. I never got a penny from it. My mom and I did it, and it went to buy groceries at 8 years old. Loved every bit of it. That I was helping the family make ends meet. And these kids would have loved it too. And now we robbed them a whole generation of it, two generations.
Here's my prediction of why people want to really bastardize and destroy and attack Donald Trump. What he did in one move, put the seed for meritocracy, American principles, property rights, and capitalism that will grow into the oak to kill all of these communist ideas and policies. And I'm going to tell you what that is. The Trump accounts are beyond insanely big because each kid has $1,000 that if they contribute $5,000 a year through gifts of family or whatever, by the time each one of those kids on just historic returns, each kid is a millionaire at 28. That has never happened before. Nobody's ever thought of it. And it all will give each one of them the self-interest to understand economics and reestablish what made us the richest country in the shortest period of time. You can be partners with people you don't ever have to meet through buying and investing in real legitimate business. I think that one move will make him the greatest president in American history in the next 1,000 years. What do you think?
Your lips to God's ears. Again, when the policy was unveiled, my first thought was, okay, do I like this being a libertarian? Do I want the government involved? And then my answer, after some careful thought, was hell yes for all the reasons you said, and particularly the charitable angle of it, where these rich billionaires who were always vilified by the left, they can contribute to this as well. Michael Dell, the lady from the space rocket place, these are giving big money to that Trump account thing, and I think it will work the way you said.
Well, the biggest fear and the resistance is because you let people keep their own money. And what the Democrat mafia and this Fourth Reich want to try and flip is the virtue in stealing someone else's money. All of these kids and all of this nonsense from coast to coast, and I'm a socialist, I'm a Marxist, I'm a communist, you're just a $2 fracking thief. It's all you are. And you don't have the balls to kick in my window. That's all you are. Be a thief in my neighborhood. See if you can make it out of the house. I used to like the old thieves. See, Jimmy?
Yeah, the guys who break into my garage and steal my bike are 10 times higher than the people who just vote to take my money.
That was my hardest. That was my hardest thing about getting Goldilocks. I had to get rid of my Democrat trap. I used to keep the door just cracked with a little trap that I got from my uncle was a hunter. Put it underneath the mat, and my wife would go, "What are you crazy? What are you doing?" I go, "That's I'm going to catch a Democrat by the toe." Listen, Jimmy Iuorio, thanks for making time for me and fill me in. I'll see you at Brandt's. Best ribs ever, although I have never had the ribs, but we'll do it soon, all right?
You will. Yes. I'll see you, brother.
Thank you, brother. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
This is the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.
You need a construction company, but who?
Call Crestcom.
A construction company you can trust that shares your Christian and conservative values. For decades, Crestcom has been doing work in Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana, and Wisconsin.